We're really good at doing what we do, producing.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock Channel. I'm Marlin Bohling. It's a pleasure to have you with us as we talk about ag-related topics. And today I have a very special guest. Kelly Nieuwenhuis joins us, and he is a corn farmer from Northwestern Iowa. I believe you have corn and maybe some other things. Kelly, enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, we produce corn and soybeans are in our farming operation and finish about 10,000 head of hogs a year. So keep pretty busy year round.
So you have interests in quite a few directions in the agricultural realm out there in northwestern Iowa. The reason I wanted to talk with you was I saw you had made a social media post here a while back, and it was talking about some things now that the wheels have kind of come off of the corn markets here in the last month or so. You had some ideas on what it would take to kind of regroup this corn market overall, and I wondered if you could share that with our audience. From a farmer's point of view, what is it that you're looking at that could maybe save the day?
Well, we recognize we're definitely at a crossroads here in agriculture and especially in the commodities. We're really good at doing what we do, producing. And we've been averaging 1.8 bushel a year increase in corn production over the last 30 years. So we need to find demand for those extra bushels. We've had the biofuels industry for 20 plus years, and that gave us a big boost back in the early 2000s. But now we're caught up there too as far as demand. So we need to grow demand. And, we really need to grow demand domestically quickly. We're sitting here today with a crop that looks really good, at least in our area. They're talking about possible record production. You've got the trade disputes going on. We've got issues there. So we need to find domestic demand. And, one of the things I've talked about a lot is, year-round E15. Been working on that for, I think, 14 years now, and we need to get that across the finish line. Just a 1% increase in blend rate or in ethanol would be like 450 million bushels of corn a year. So that's a great starting point. And then we're also sitting here today with this opportunity with 45Z tax credits for SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel. The market potential there is unlimited. The numbers are mind-boggling, but that would give us a tremendous opportunity for agriculture to find a demand for what we're producing.
Now, some have been telling me that would have a lot more impact on the soybean side than it would on the corn side. Why do they say that?
Well, currently, a lot of the SAF is made from soy oil or corn oil, actually. But we recognize the fact that ethanol to jet has a huge potential and a lot larger feedstock available. And we just need to get the tax credits because like any new industry that's starting up in the U.S., it seems to need a little boost to get people encouraged to invest in it and give us that opportunity for that new fuel.
So you feed livestock. You can look at it from the end user side there when it comes to commercial livestock production. How does ethanol fit into the demand wheel, if you will, when it comes to corn in your area compared to maybe demand for livestock feed?
I'm sitting in an area where they're pretty equal. We definitely have a three-legged stool in commodities and corn production. We've got trade, the export markets. We got the livestock industry, which is crucial. But the newest thing and the best growth potential for what we do is through biofuels. Whether it's through, ethanol or SAF, or we're working on biochemicals and biopolymers that come through ethanol. And, the potential's there. We just got to be allowed the markets. And I'll mention, too, one other thing about the growth potential for ethanol. A lot of it's going to be based on CI scores. We've talked about that in the past, but carbon intensity scores of our corn production and our ethanol production are critical to industries wanting to look into using corn as a feedstock instead of fossil fuels. So that's a key part of our potential growth for our industry.
Do you think that component, though, may be taken away as they do away with some of the, what I call green regulations?
Well, if we're happy that the one part of the Inflation Reduction Act that's still remaining is 45Z. That's the biofuels industry, biodiesel, the soybean industry, the corn industry is very focused on keeping the 45Z tax credit to grow our industries or grow our demand. And, we have the 45Q tax credit, but that's been enacted back in 2008. It's currently in a good place. If you have a project up and running by 2031, you have 12 years past that to qualify for a 45Q. And that's where we would love to go with a 45Z tax credit if we could match it up with 45Q. But any type of extension we could have on that would be beneficial.
Well, things are getting really dire, if you will, from the demand side here. It's hard to compete with Brazil, who seems to be eating our lunch here lately. That's going to be hard to keep up with if we don't come up with some new ideas on how to use this stuff.
Well, we definitely need to grow domestic demand. And, I'm a big fan of exports and trade. Hopefully we can get some trade agreements. I know we're working hard on India, but trades, you got to be the lowest cost for the most part to get into the trade industry or export markets. And, Brazil, they keep expanding acres. I heard something like 60 million acres of pasture ground that they could still put into production. And, we're kind of capped. We're losing acreage every year to urban sprawl or whatever. So we need to compete. We need to have value-added products that we can use domestically here in the U.S.
I'm going to ask you a tough question here. What would it take to get you to consider planting something else other than corn and beans?
That's been suggested before, but this is corn-producing country and soybeans. The big thing is having markets. There's always talk about producing something else, but then you go to find a market for it, and it's not there. So, I'm not against people that are trying to find niche markets for their farming operations, but the opportunities are pretty slim there as far as having markets. So we're going to focus on demand for corn through biofuels, through new uses through biofuels, through biopolymers, or through biochemistry. So and those things are all in the works. It just never seems to happen quick enough.
Well, are we at a point, do you think, where the farm economy is really starting to slide again, and it's going to be tough to get young people to come back to the farm again?
Well, yeah, when it's not profitable, it's pretty hard to entice young people to want to get into this industry. We've been working on a farm bill seems like forever. The 2023 farm bill we still don't have a new farm bill. That was supposed to be enacted in 23. But, that's truly just a safety net. And as far as farmers are concerned, we want a safety net, but our main goal is to have a safety net and never use it. If we have commodity prices where we're profitable and markets where we're profitable, we won't need those MFP payments or anything like that, or be in that situation. So our main goal is to grow demand, and so we have markets and profitability through markets.
Back to that point, I was a little concerned about the young guys trying to get in. And I heard a comment the other day from a young farmer that he decided to come back, get into agriculture. And then he had made the comment that all the input costs and the equipment costs are so expensive now. And now that the market is falling apart, he's rethinking what he just did. And he's really wondering if maybe he made the right decision. It really worries me, Kelly, that maybe we'll see an exodus again if things don't turn around here before too long.
Yeah, it worries me too. But I did a blog quite a few years ago on social media about when I started farming. I'm paying 20% interest, and commodity prices weren't that good. We pretty much lived on government programs between LDPs and set-asides and pick and roll and all those things. Getting into agriculture has never been easy. And, my grandfather started during the Great Depression. My dad started in 1959, and it was tough. It was tough in 1983 when I started. It's tough today, and I won't argue that case. And hopefully we can find programs to help young farmers get into the operation and make things a little less stressful, because I know this is an industry that creates a lot of stress.
One thing I do like is the renewed interest in getting behind tech schools.
Yep.
And, from my point of view, ag tech schools I think they're tremendous. I mean, I went to one for a little while. I didn't get to finish because my dad had to get out of farming and I had to take over. But, I think that is really something that could bear watching because they could have a lot to contribute to moving agriculture forward and maybe increasing technology and also coming up with other uses for our product. And I think that's got a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I've always been encourage young people to look into trade schools if they didn't want to do a 4-year college and get a 4-year degree. There's a lot of good blue collar paying jobs out there for young people to get involved in. I've got some kids in my family, some son-in-laws, and some of my own kids that went to trade schools and are involved in very good jobs right now. So, the potential there through trade schools, not only for agriculture, but for any blue collar type of job is out there, and the demand is high for those kind of workers and that skill.
How do you feel about the corn crop this year and maybe the soybean crop too? I mean, do you think the corn crop is already over the hump at this point or not?
Well, I never count my chickens before they're hatched, but here in my location, we've got a really good looking corn crop. I think our emergence is one of the best we've had in years. Our stand is really, really good. I've been across Iowa here in the last few weeks, and there's some wet pockets, but overall the crop looks really good. I know there's issues across the nation of excess moisture in areas and stuff, but here in Iowa, I think we're going to produce a record crop if we don't end up with severe storms and hailstorms and stuff like that to restrict that. The potential we have right now, and you and my brothers are saying, if we get a couple of timely rains, this corn crop's going to be huge in our area.
Make sure we have bin space, right?
Yep, bin space, and then, like I said, we need to grow this demand, and if we getting year-round E15 approved nationwide, getting California on board with E15. I know they're a huge market for our E85. They're the largest export or market for our E85 fuels is California, but we need a nationwide program where consumers have that option. And, it won't cost the government anything to approve that, and it will only save consumers money at the pump. So kind of mind-boggling that it hasn't happened yet, but we'll keep pushing for year-round E15, and then we'll continue to promote the 45Z tax credits and hopefully get those in the position where we're allowed to be in the SAF market.
Well, I know in the Mid-South and parts of the Eastern Corn Belt, we had delays this spring. It took them all to get that corn crop in. And I hear there may be some abandoned acres there too, prevent plant acres in some areas. But on the other hand, I think where you are, it seems like in general, the planting went really fast.
Yep.
And I just wondered how far along the crop is in general compared to where it normally would be this time of year. Are you happy with the crop in Iowa?
Yeah. A lot of our corn is probably pushing ways to chest high right now. I think we'll be tasseling here probably in about 10 days, which is a little ahead of schedule or normal. The soybeans are a little different. We no-tilled all of our soybeans this year, and they struggled getting out of the ground. They're coming along really good now since we've had some good rains. And our weed control, that's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon, is out scouting fields to see how the weed control is working. And we've sprayed everything once, and hopefully we're done with that. But like I said, here in Northwest Iowa, things look really, really good.
Well, I appreciate the update. Good to visit with you again, Kelly. I wish you all the best here for this growing season. And hopefully you do have a bountiful crop to have to sell that beats the other way around, where you don't have anything to sell and you have a good price. But anyway,
Yeah.
I thank you for the information and sharing your insight into the crop this year and the marketing. Look forward to talking with you next time. Kelly Nieuwenhuis from Northwest Iowa joining us today, and thank you for joining us. Appreciate that very much. For producer Breanne Jenkins, I'm Marlin Bohling. We'll catch you next time here on the Comstock Channel. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.